convictions. He told the court again today that the criminal justice system did him wrong, that he didn't commit these crimes, and that he's an innocent man. Look, he addressed the court for about 12 minutes today, and it took about 10 minutes before he even mentioned his wife in any substantive matter. This is a guy that claims he was trying to save his wife from being murdered, and yet he doesn't even mention that he's heartbroken, that she's dead, that he misses her. Don't you think somebody who was wrongfully convicted of their own wife's murder would show a little bit of emotion in the courtroom today? Take a listen to what he said just a couple of hours ago.
I was found guilty of a crime that I did not commit, but it's actually impossible to have committed the crime, as the prosecution, their experts, and their witnesses have presented. The prosecution and their witnesses' statements do not match the evidence. My rights to defend my family has been taken away, to defend my home and myself.
And all the while, Joe, your heart's just breaking for the parents of his wife and the family of the other man, Joseph Ryan, who was killed in there, having to sit in that courtroom and listen to that today. It had to be tough.
Drew, this same judge yesterday denied a last-minute attempt by Banfield's lawyers to get his guilty verdict thrown out. Walk us through real quickly here what they were arguing. Obviously, it looks like they're getting ready to appeal, and this might set the stage for that.
Right, so his defense attorney yesterday claimed that the prosecutors made 3 errors at his trial. This was maybe one of the shortest motion hearings that I've ever witnessed. The prosecution didn't even make any oral argument against it, and the judge shot it down in about 18 minutes. But he did have an appellate attorney assigned to him today. He has 30 days to file for an appeal. It would probably be 3 to 4 months before anything really moves forward on an appeal, Joe.
All right, Drew Wilder reporting from Virginia. Drew, thank you so much. Coming up, a flesh-eating screwworm is discovered in a Texas cow. The first time that has happened in more than half a century. How it could impact your next summer cookout. Plus, an investigation is underway after police say a Hollywood actor featured in several blockbuster movies was stabbed to death in Los Angeles. We got the latest ahead on NBC News Daily.
COPD is an ugly reality.
Do you have his medical history?
I watch as this world just keeps getting smaller. But then, Trelegy helped us see things a little differently. With 3 medicines and 1 inhaler, Trelegy keeps airways open for a full 24 hours and prevents future flare-ups. Once daily Trelegy also improves lung function so he can breathe more freely all day and night.
Trelegy will replace a rescue inhaler for sudden breathing problems. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition or high blood pressure before taking it. Do not take Trelegy more than prescribed. Trelegy may increase your risk of thrush, pneumonia, and osteoporosis. Call your doctor if sudden breathing, chest pain, mouth or tongue swelling, problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain occur.
Ask your doctor about once daily Trelegy for COPD, because breathing should be beautiful all day and night.
Arthritis causes pain in your joints. Unlike pills, Voltaren gel is applied to the site of pain, penetrating deep through the skin to the joint, reducing intense pain caused by inflammation so you can move more freely. Voltaren, clinically proven long-lasting arthritis pain relief.
Global leaders are keeping an eye on St. Petersburg, Russia today. That's where Russian President Vladimir Putin delivered a major address at a flagship economic forum. Just days ago, Ukrainian drone strikes rocked that host city of St. Petersburg. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also published an open letter which taunted the Russian president about his age and called for face-to-face talks to end the war. Joining us now is NBC News Chief International Correspondent Keir Simmons, who is at the summit in St. Petersburg. Keir, good to see you. What more did we hear from Russia's president today, and just how did he respond to this open letter from President Zelensky?
Well, not very happily, honestly. There was a representative for President Trump, a man called Rodney Cook, who was in the front row, and I spoke to him just before the address by President Putin, the question and answer session. I asked him about Ukraine. He said he was hopeful. Didn't sound very hopeful, though, when they got to asking President Putin about that letter from President Zelensky and about whether or not he would agree to what President Zelensky asked for, which was a face-to-face meeting. Take a listen.
What is this letter about? Is it a means to create an environment for a personal meeting? Maybe is letter meant to make sure that no personal meetings can take place at all? I think it's the second.
So I'll take that as a no, that you are not going to meet the author of the letter.
Пока не вижу смысла. So far, I see no point.
The author of the letter, President Putin, in fact, doesn't even mention President Zelensky's name when he talks about him, and that was true again today. And he also, in comments, talked about his maximalist goals in Ukraine still being in place. Things like that Russia should take control of all of Donbass, something that Ukraine has said publicly it has ruled out, Joe.
Keir, what else did President Putin say about current relations with the United States when it comes to the war in Ukraine?
Well, what was fascinating was that he called on Rodney Cook, that representative of the Trump administration, friend of President Trump, to stand up and talk. And then Rodney Cook conveyed respects from President Trump to President Putin, and President Putin sent those back to President Trump. But ultimately, though, in another session here, we heard Rodney Cook say that there can't really be any kind of a reset, if you like, between the US and Russia, which is what many Russians are looking for, without peace. And I think he was saying that because that is what he was frankly told to say, because that's what the Trump administration now, I think, is settled on. And all of this really suggests that we aren't very much closer to any kind of a resolution. I will say there is a buzz here about the potential for another meeting with President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. And in fact, I spoke to President Putin's envoy this week, and he said that he's in constant contact with them, and that he does think that there will be progress, that he does believe that what was agreed in Alaska, according to the Russians, between President Trump and President Putin, will come to pass. But I think there are huge questions as we speak right now.
No doubt. And here at the same time, I understand the Russian Ministry of Defense said there has been another prisoner exchange between Ukraine and Russia. What do we know?
Yeah, that's right. Another prisoner exchange, a substantial number. And then at the same time, and this is the irony, this is the contradictions of this whole thing, really. At the same time, just today, there were more drones targeting Moscow. And of course, this speech by President Putin here came after that drone attack on St. Petersburg. And in fact, President Putin, in his address today, accepted that drones had hit a particular facility. So it's kind of push and pull. But in the end, the fundamental thing is that the person who really decide was standing on the stage today. That is President Putin, and he doesn't really seem to have moved very far, in fact, frankly, not at all, from the position he's been taking for years, if not months.
Keir Simmons in St. Petersburg. Keir, thank you so much. Record high temperatures are impacting a huge part of the country as we head into the weekend with severe storms in the forecast. This blast of heat will push some temperatures close to triple digits up and down the East Coast. NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns joins us now. So, Bill, just how high could these temps get this weekend?
I think you're right. I think at least a few spots, maybe one in areas around Richmond, the Raleigh, someone has a chance of hitting 100. As far as the temperatures go, though, it doesn't have that heat index component to it. It's a dry heat, which is so rare for the East Coast. But with the air is not mixing right now, and with that, everyone's still using their vehicles, and when the air is not mixing in the summertime, we get that ozone problem. And you notice all the alerts that are rough, D.C. to New York, Philadelphia included, and a few spots in the South. As far as records go, we're not going to shatter records. You have to really be above 100 this time of year to get like widespread records. But we do have a couple that are dotting the maps. But without the humidity, it actually won't feel as bad as the temperature, which is kind of rare for the eastern seaboard. So as we go throughout this afternoon, mid-90s from Washington to Baltimore, Philadelphia. New York will be right around 90 today. Tomorrow's the hottest day, though. Look at Raleigh, 96 tomorrow, 95 in Richmond. Even Norfolk towards the water. You have to be right towards the beach to get that relief. Also feeling like 96. The relief will come as we head towards next week. Many areas go back into the 80s. It's not like it's going to be cool again, but at least we'll be back towards normal. And as far as storms go, we are watching a chance of isolated strong storms today over a large portion of the northern plains, Minneapolis included, Wisconsin, all the way through Des Moines, back down north of Kansas City. In those areas, we're not really looking for tornadoes, mostly damaging wind and some large hail. And then as that cold front sinks into that hot air in the east, numerous large cities have a chance of isolated severe storms Saturday evening, especially Hartford, New York, Philadelphia, State College to Cleveland. So we'll have our isolated problems out there. Also very rainy tomorrow, areas from Dallas northwards into Oklahoma. Watch out for those storms, Joe.
All right, Bill Cairns, thank you so much. Still ahead, the fight over the proposed White House ballroom in a federal courtroom today as President Trump floats a new idea in his efforts to revamp Washington. You're watching NBC News Daily.
I've got places to go.